Good evening, everyone. This is Dave Eldon here with my friend Dalton Grimes, and we have got a special treat for you tonight.
You bet we do. So, with judging, I've recently gotten into our rules and policy classes here in our Great Lakes region.
Oh, yeah, great
And
classes.
yeah, they're a lot of fun. We have a really good group of people this semester session.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like 15 weeks, right?
Yeah, it's something like that.
It's a quarter, I believe, would be the general term.
Sure, let's go for that. We have a great group this quarter. And one of the things we were talking about last night is, becoming an L2 or starting to judge larger events.
Ooh, yeah.
Say SCG Tour or Grand Prix or, I don't know. That's really
That's
it.
what we have in the U.S.
Yeah.
There might be
I guess there's nationals,
Yeah,
but that's pretty
also once a quarter.
few and far between. So I think that we should talk about what to expect when you're expecting.
Yeah. So expecting to be on staff for a tournament, that is. Wouldn't know.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wouldn't know a whole lot about some of the other topics of that type, but judging a tournament, I've done that before. So yeah,
Once or twice.
yeah. What would we expect from a tournament? And to be clear, what we're talking about here is we're going to be talking about large scale events, as opposed to what maybe we've done before is smaller scale stuff like a store level event or something like that. This would be a bigger scale tournament, such as the types of Dalton had just alluded to.
Yeah, so at this point, chances are if you're following our stream, you've either wanted to become a judge, you are a judge who's looking to maybe move forward or to better yourself in any way, shape, or form. So you know what it's like to judge at a store. You show up maybe 15, 30 minutes beforehand, you might play while you judge, and things are great. It's all cool. But when you start stepping up into larger events, you go from having maybe 30 or 40 players as a maximum size to looking at 1,500 players in a room.
That's quite a lot. Yeah.
It is, but it's certainly attainable.
Yeah, it's definitely fun, and I think that the large scale has a different character than a store level event, and I think that actually really ups the enjoyment factor for me. Like seeing all those people in one room, it's an experience.
Yeah, just getting to know that what you're doing has such a huge impact on this many people.
Oh, I try not to think about that.
I love it. That's like one of my favorite parts, is knowing that something that you're doing makes 1,500 people out there have a much better weekend, much better love for the game. So I know that my first event that I started working, it was SCG Cincinnati. It was my first large event.
That was a big event.
I don't really remember how many people were there specifically.
It was about 1,000.
But my first day, I was on the main event, which sometimes you'll find that with newer judges or those who haven't worked large events like that before, you may end up on side events or something else, things that are regular rules enforcement level, something that's a little more familiar, because it's sort of like a stomping grounds to get a sense of who you are as a judge, like a first date.
Oh yeah.
But I was on the main event and I was nervous. I was so incredibly nervous. And in my region, I have David Eldon as one of my mentors. I have a couple other shout outs. Patrick Cobley is one, who's
great.
a phenomenal judge. And then Marcos Sanchez, who is now in New York,
not in our area,
representing us elsewhere in the country, but also of the Fort Wayne dynasty.
Oh yeah, he's definitely a Fort Wayne judge, in my opinion.
I had some phenomenal mentors, and I still was just out of my mind nervous about this event. And so I did a lot of studying beforehand. So
yeah, you did a great job, by the way.
I thought so. It seemed pretty great. My first call was ridiculous and memorable for forever, but I was cramming the IPG. I was cramming because I knew from the emails that I received that I was going to be on the main event. I knew that I was going to be working competitive REL, so I knew that I had to know the infraction procedure guideline and a little more in depth of the Magic Tournament rules. So I was just the whole way there while I was going to sleep that night. I was in bed with my phone just hunched over, and it's amazing that I was able to talk to Marcos and Patrick the whole time as we drove down. So I don't know. I did a lot of studying. Do you find that you still do that, David,
No.
before events?
No. I will say, actually, I'm not a big studier in general. Even when I was in school, I didn't like when there was an exam, I would maybe show up like half an hour and I would like page through my notes, and that was my like studying that I did. This is something about like how I process information, I suppose, but it's the sort of thing that I've never really needed to do a whole lot in order to get the information in there. So that's the superpower, I guess, that I got. I could have had super strength or being able to fly, but remembering stuff is all right. I think part of the reason that's true for me is that I spend a lot of time like studying during times when I'm not going to a tournament.
I would argue that writing new set digests and things like that is probably a pretty good form of study.
I was gonna say I probably read like the IPG and the CR more than most judges do, like just out of the gates from doing stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So that sort of studying is the sort of thing that I do all the time, like even when I'm not going to an event. So
and I did spend a lot of time on the Judging for the Win site as well.
Hard
looking into those. Oh yes, it was a big help and definitely made me feel a lot better about my first event. Another thing that was kind of interesting to get used to is up until that point I'd worked some pre-releases. Yeah. I'd worked a couple of FNMs. Yeah. And I'd gone to 2 judge conferences.
Ooh, yeah.
So at all of those store events, I had one other judge I was working with. At the conferences, there were presentations. It was a room full of other judges, but no one was working. It was all incredibly casual. If it weren't for the topics of the presentations, you wouldn't even know it was a judge conference.
Yeah.
It was just, it felt a lot more like a bunch of people hanging out. Well, I got to my first event, and everyone's wearing these nice fancy polos. And
SCG has polos, not these black shirts.
No, it was an SCG, so they were in polos. And I was sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, people are going to look at this shirt and they're going to ask me so many questions. Like, not even just about Magic. You're always going to get, hey, is this altar okay? Or, hey, Judge, do you think these sleeves are going to be fine?
Yeah.
And those questions, usually you can either answer or who to send them to. So
right.
With the sleeves, I can usually say, oh, these are good, or you might want to change these. Altars, you send to the head judge. But then what if I get questions about, like, hey, when does this event start? Hey, what's the prize payout for sides?
Oh, yeah.
Or, hey, I lost my deck in round 2 and now I can't play.
now it's round 5 and I just realized it.
Yeah. I realized that with that shirt, wearing it at an event like that, I was all of a sudden on this whole new level. And I don't mean this as a braggadocious high horse. I meant this as people were going to seek me out for answers.
Yeah.
Probably answers I didn't have at the time. And so a lot of getting ready for your first event is going to be learning how to handle that. Some simple stuff that I do that helps me out is this year SCG has done a good job of passing out these little booklets. And I don't have one on me right now, or else I'd hold it up. But it's just a little notebook. And in those notebooks, I'll write down, what I'm doing day 1, if I'm going to be on deck checks, or if I'm going to be on side events or whatnot. I'll write down what I'm doing day 2. And then I also go ahead and I'll write down, like, the prize payout for side events. Because when people want to know, I can just hand them that and say, hey, look at this. And then they're much happier.
Oh, wow.
Or I'll write down maybe who the team lead is. Or, I'll say Dave Eldon is team lead for distribution. And then if anyone asks, I can say, oh, go find David, he's doing this. And so putting that, and not only writing it down but taking the time to process it, really helps me to remember that and sets me up for a much better day. So
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
My personal tips is like the notebook is great. I love the notebook, but you want to also have like in my opinion, it's not a realistic thing for you to have all the information downloaded to your brain every time. So the best idea that I would share with people is if you are going with a plan and at least know where they should go to find that information, because like I'm not on that event, but you should talk to like this person over here. That's a perfectly fine thing you can tell people. For most of the like scoring or like Planeswalker point multiplier, I love when people ask for the Planeswalker point multiplier.
Yeah.
I don't know what a Planeswalker point is, guy. Like, come on. But yeah, for questions like that, if you don't know, you send them up to like the front stage. Usually would be the place where they handle that stuff. Or if they have like an information desk, you can send them there. That would be like usually where the lost and found would be, for example.
Or how often do you get, hey, Judge, I'm X and 2. Do you think I can make day 2?
I mean, like, that's possible. Like, sure. That's a great question to never answer, by the way, because, like, what'll happen is even no matter how sure you are and if you can do the Pascal triangle, that's all great. But if you are ever wrong, then that player is only ever going to remember the time that one judge screwed them over because they were going to make top 8 and now they like drew when they should have played it out, and because they followed that dumb judge's advice, they like got 9th place in a tournament that they were going to top 8. So like I never answer those questions. I'm always like, yeah, I don't usually play in these things enough. Your best bet on that is to like ask a player, because there's like too many variables to say for sure. Or if it's like the day 2 question, you can answer that one because that's a deterministic thing. You can say like, for SCG right now, what it is like you make day 2 if you have a certain record, or if you have the same record as the 64th person, then you get into day 2. So you can tell them stuff like that because that's certain. You're not going to be wrong on that. But like if it's like, yeah, I think XO and 3 is probably going to be okay to make it, that sort of stuff is like, maybe it's going to be right, maybe not. So stay away from the stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. And what would be worse is if you say, oh, well, I think X2 is going to make it, and then X2 doesn't, and they go up to the head judge and they say, hey, look, this guy right here, he said that I could make it if I was X2, and I played this whole day, and otherwise I would have been blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's not worth it.
People hate being wrong about stuff like that because that's like the difference between like $100 and $300 for them. Like you got to think about that. That's the actual like that's where the stakes are. So
yeah, for you it's
don't tell them the wrong answer.
No, it makes a lot bigger of a difference for them if you get it wrong than it does for you.
Yeah,
and whether you think about it or not, a large portion of judging is customer service.
Oh yeah,
and that. Lying to a player, even if you don't mean to, just telling them something that's wrong, is horrible customer service. Yeah. So yeah, that's something I like to avoid. And yeah, the 64th place makes it really easy to give them something concrete that you can use. I can tell them go, win every match. I'll give them that advice. Oh yeah, if you win every match, you day 2.
That's also something I
promise you'll win.
Yeah, that's also something I kind of try to avoid because like if someone's asking you that question, they're in a serious mood. They're in a serious attitude. They aren't in a mood for a joke. Like they're like, hey, can I make this or not? So as a result, I think that it's important to like stick to factual answers for a question like that.
It is, because if you give them the serious answer and they decide, okay, I think I'm out, then they're gonna go play sides. Or they're going to go get lunch with their friends, or they're going to go sign up for something else, or maybe get home safely. If you deter them from that, then you may deter them from having the best weekend that they could.
Jeez, I remember there was the SCG Indy, and it was that one where there was the huge blizzard, right? And so I was actually playing in that event on Sunday, and this was I was like X and 2, and I literally remember thinking to myself, gee, I hope I lose the next round so I can like pack it up and start going home, because like it was literally like every round you'd look out the window and there would be another inch of snow on the ground. It was that bad.
Gross.
It was so bad, and like obviously I ended up like winning out like at X2, but so that was the first time it wasn't the first time I cashed, but it was the first time I like did more than the minimum amount of cash at an SCG. So that was my first time into the 100 club. And yeah, I mean that was cool, but driving 4 hours back on a trip that's normally 2 hours, that's a little.
Yeah, so what you say has a huge impact. So make sure you're doing your best.
Yeah, do your best, and I mean do your best always. So okay, what are some other like ways you can do your best at this tournament? Like what other kind of preparations might you be interested in making?
Well, that's great because there's so much.
Yeah, well, there is. We have a list of stuff that we were going to talk about.
We do. So one of the things that I always try to get taken care of as soon as possible is I like to know where the event is, which sounds silly, but to really think about
it. I know that's going to happen to me one day. I know I'm going to be like, oh yeah, it's in Columbus. I know where the Columbus Convention Center, and then like they'll randomly have it at some other convention center, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? Where's the SCG or where's the GP? And
exactly.
I'll walk around for like 15 minutes and like have to phone the tournament organizer and be like, hey guys, I'm going to be a little late today because I went to the wrong convention center.
So my first event that I worked was SCG Cincinnati.
Yeah.
However, the SCG tournament took place in the Sharonville Convention Center.
Oh yeah. That's still the old one.
It was.
They moved now. So the most recent SCG Cincinnati was in the like downtown Cincinnati Convention Center.
Yeah.
So that one's for sure live to happen.
So there are definitely people that showed up to that event at the wrong place.
Yeah.
Because they didn't double check that.
Now, you know what I like about Cincinnati? The Sharonville Convention Center has free parking.
It does. Yes.
Do you know what convention center does not have free parking?
The Cincinnati one.
Hey, here's another interesting question. Did you know that in the U.S., in almost every city that I've ever been to, you can park downtown or you can park on the street on Sundays for free? I probably shouldn't have told you this. All our viewers now are gonna like be
stealing your spots
for spots, but like as a judge, I get there like early enough, right? So like that's actually pretty good for me as a judge because like my call time is an hour earlier than everyone else's. So yeah, do you know what city you cannot park for free on Sundays on the streets?
Chicago.
Cincinnati.
Oh really?
Cincinnati. Yeah, downtown Cincinnati you cannot. Outskirts or like suburbs of Cincinnati such as Sharonville, that's okay, but guess who maybe got a $90 parking ticket?
It's the most expensive parking you ever had.
Yeah, that was pretty gross. I was very dissatisfied with that outcome. But that's one of those things you gotta like study and know and not assume.
You gotta live and learn.
Yeah.
And you gotta watch Judging for the Win.
Yeah. Well, I got a that's not the only parking ticket I got, but it's the only like legitimate parking ticket that I've ever got. They hit me up in Charlotte, I believe it was. They gave me a ticket. Even though I like parked in the lot and I like had the ticket displayed, and I contested that one and they never replied back to me. So that one was not a legit parking ticket.
Win.
Yeah. I mean we take those even though I had to like waste a bunch of my time like figuring out how to contest it and then doing it. But I'm not capitulating to them when I already paid like $8 or whatever it was to like actually park there. So I mean, if we're gonna do that, you might as well just like not pay ever.
Just hope it averages out.
Yeah, but so what you do is you if you're gonna park on the street, you look at the parking meter, and the parking meter will say if it's okay to park on the street on Sundays.
Yeah.
Or holidays. A lot of the times the holidays are free too. So like those GPs that they put on like Memorial Day weekend, for example.
Yep.
Or 4th of July weekend is another one that they usually have. So yeah, look out for those. Can't speak to how it would be in other areas like Europe, for example, because I've only ever used like Uber. I've never like driven or in anything like that. But for the U.S., if you're coming into the U.S. or if you're someone who doesn't have this come up for them very often it is free on Sundays if you want to park on the street.
Something else that's very related is hotels and lodging.
Oh yeah, hotels is great. We could in fact we are probably going to do a whole episode on hotels and like how to like save the most money when you're traveling on hotels. Hotels.com.
I don't know anything about that.
Oh yeah, well, I know a thing or two about like how to get a good deal on hotels.
One thing I learned from one of my first interactions with David was going with him to a judge conference. It was our regional conference in Detroit, and I learned probably 2 hours worth of information on how to just like rack up hotel points and all sorts of stuff, all because David is like an evil genius.
Yeah, we could do a whole episode on like loyalty programs and how to take advantage of stuff like that on as a judge. That one's coming down the pipeline.
That'll come up later.
Oh yeah.
But so with hotels, plan. Know where your event is. Know whether or not your hotel has free parking, whether or not your hotel is in walking distance of the event, whether or not your hotel has enough space for you to room with other people, what the maximum number of people in a hotel room is. There is so much here that you can take advantage of.
All right, so I'm going to briefly give you a short outline of what my process is. And this process is, I think, like pretty close to the optimum. Other people in the chat, if you have like your own tips and tricks, you can for sure put those in there, and we'll share those with everybody here. But step one is you want to figure out where your hotel is going to be. All right, now if you're driving to the event, you want a hotel that's going to be close enough that you can drive from the hotel to the convention center, but not like right downtown. Because if it's right downtown, it's going to cost like a lot more. So you're literally like probably able to trade like 15 minutes worth of sleep in the morning for like a solid $20 to $40, depending on like where the city is and like, you know, how far you consider a drive to be reasonable. So and that's a trade I'm excited.
I was gonna say, if you work that out, that's $80 an hour.
Yeah.
So I'd be fine making $80 an hour.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's step one is you figure out where you want your hotel to be. And like for me, my heuristic is I generally want to be like around 15 or 20 minutes away from the venue if I'm driving there. So that's stage one. Stage two is you go to the hotel website. I won't speak a lot about like which one I like to use. That's kind of another topic. Use
whatever you're comfortable with.
But you go to the hotel website that you're going to book from, and they're you know, if you want to shop around, you can go to different ones, or like one of the aggregator sites like Orbitz or Hotels or Expedia or something. So you go there and you like type in where you want to stay, and then you type in you know, like your other stuff, and then you hit search, and then you sort by like price. And then you like scroll down the list to see like which one is like the first one that strikes your fancy price wise. And then you use Google Maps to chart a course from the hotel address that they'll have on the website to the convention center. And then you see how long that'll take you. And then you like make a call based on like how much you think that's worth to you. So that's that step. Always sign up for the loyalty program. Loyalty program is basically, well, it's always free to sign up for. And there's a non-negligible chance that you could eventually accrue enough points to get a free night. But the real reason why you're signing up for the hotel loyalty program is because that gives you like extra perks. And the perks are like generally like stupid stuff that should be free anyway, but like the hotel loyalty program gives it to you for free, like guaranteed. So for example, they all will give you free Wi-Fi. I think every single hotel program that I'm familiar with gives you free Wi-Fi. They will almost always accommodate a request for early like check-in or late check-out. You know, as long as it's like a reasonable request, obviously. Those are like the two biggest things that you want from the loyalty program. And then of course, like eventually you can get enough points to like get a free night, but that's like after like maybe 10 stays or something. So, you know, that's kind of a ways off, but it's still good to start thinking about now. No reason to leave the money on the table.
Another thing is think about if there's anyone you're going to be staying with.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a huge one.
Yeah.
Always get a room that has 2 queen beds. You know, I suppose other stuff might be like playable too, like if it's a smaller hotel, but almost always you should be able to get an option for 2 queen beds, and 2 queen beds is by far the best as far as like, you know, staying with other people. So if you have 2 people, each of them can have their own bed. If you have 4 people, you can fit like 2 pairs. You know, as long as everybody doesn't mind being comfortable. And then there's almost always room for a 5th person, or maybe even a 6th person, depending on how, you know, exciting you want to make your trip on the ground, if that's something that you really are trying to reduce the cost as much as possible.
Yeah. And I mean, for example, I personally really enjoy sleeping on the floor, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, we take those.
Because anyone is willing to have me in a hotel room.
Yeah.
Because if I'm willing to do that, which I love camping, I have enough camping gear to make it comfortable. It's not like a detriment to my health or anything.
Yeah.
Pretty much anyone out there is going to say, yeah, you can totally crash in here, because it takes the cost of the hotel from, you know, $50 a person to $40 a person.
All right. So this is another thing. This is a great math lesson here. If you have one person in a hotel room that costs $100 a night, The second person is going to reduce your cost to $50. Okay, the third person is going to reduce your cost from $50 to $33, and then the fourth person is going to reduce your cost from $33 to $25. So you notice that like your cost savings gets lower every time. That means that it's important to get your first person. It's okay to get your third person or your second person that you're sharing with, but like after that, your gains kind of like start diminishing. So use those numbers in the back of your head when you're doing calculations for like is having one more person, because there is an actual cost. There's a cost to having another person in the hotel room. There's like fighting over showers. There's like space in your room. There's the chance to free roll into sleeping by yourself. That's always a huge plus. And if you aren't familiar with this person, maybe they snore. That could reduce your quality of life. Maybe they're a slob. That could reduce your quality of life. Maybe they'll accidentally put something on the mini bar on your credit card. That would reduce your quality of life a lot. So like there's some unknown factors that you have to like take into account. But like the best advice I have is like get 2 or 3 solid, like rock solid trap and use them as much as you possibly can. That's the super high impact strategy for hoteling.
And yeah, big thing is get people you can trust.
Yeah.
Trust
and like.
Yes. I find that judges are really great for this because we are contracted to the event now. We have a personal stake in it of being compensated for our time. And this is not to say anything against players, but a player is going to be spending money to go to an event. So in theory, it is probably more likely that a player may choose not to go.
I will tell you, I've never had a judge bail on me. Players are like 25% to bail out. If I was going to put a number on it, I'd say a solid 25% of the time. When I had a player say that they were gonna like stay with me or go to an event with me, 25% they bailed. So like you use that in your calculations too, I guess.
Yeah, and like I said, that's nothing against players. I have other judges who are going to play events that I still trust fully. I have really good friends that I've been playing with for a long time that I am going to trust fully. But a judge is going to have more stakes.
Yeah. Judges never back out because they already like agreed to work. It's like backing out of going to work instead of backing out of like going on vacation. It's way easier to back out of vacation.
So definitely look into all things. And I did like the point you brought up about your diminishing returns on more people. I've had 8 people in a hotel room.
Yeah, would you say the 8th person was worth it, in your opinion?
Well, probably
Bear in
not.
mind that by the time that we're getting down to 8 people, you're reduced to like less than $5 per person.
No, it was $8 per person for the night. It was like a really crummy hotel.
saving less than $5 per person.
Oh yeah.
So like, would you pay $5 to kick one of those people out?
So let's see. We had 2 people in 2 of the beds. So
that's
and then
4
2 people in the other is 4. We had 1 person on the floor in the middle.
Okay, yeah.
One person on the luggage racks.
Ooh, boy, that's a spicy one.
One person in the bathtub.
Yeah, the bathtub is actually like a very surprisingly playable.
As long as no one has showered.
Yeah. As long as you're not interfering with the showers. But yeah, like with like a comforter or something, that gets like actually comfortable. And nobody's going to fight you over being in the bathtub.
Also, if you're in the bathtub, you have to make sure you're an early riser.
Yeah, because
anyone else is going to kick you out.
Shower.
And then, they're also going to kick you out.
Yeah.
And then I want to say we had 1 person who was like up against the refrigerator or something, like just back up against it.
Yeah.
That hotel was not fun.
Literally at that point, just get a second room. Like, it's not going to cost you that much more. Like, and you're literally paying like an extra maybe $5, $10 maybe, in order to promote yourself to like guaranteed sleeping in a bed and not having to trip over people all night. And in my opinion, that's super worth it. If you're like, a broke college kid or something, maybe money is worth a lot more to you than it might be to someone who's a, engineer and, but
yeah,
if you, are considering the 8 person, know that there is risks, and the risks is all that stuff you just said.
Because if
it's not all glitz and glamour in the judge community.
I was in bed, so it wasn't that bad. But if I was the person who was stuck against the fridge or on the luggage racks,
on the luggage racks that's where I'd probably have to.
I would have not had a great event.
There was one time where we stayed for free in someone's house, and that was great. Except the person was a smoker, and I'm talking like a chain smoker. Like they took that seriously. They took that nicotine seriously. So like the house smelled like an ashtray, and it was like literally there was a time in like the middle of the night where I like got out and went to my car because it was that bad.
Yeah, and maybe you smoke and that doesn't matter to you.
Yeah.
Everyone is going to be different.
So you gotta like take the stuff that you already know about yourself and apply it to the new situations and use that to make a judgment call. But I will say one thing, which is you don't know where the line is until you cross it. So don't be afraid to take some risks because, and especially with traveling, I think, don't be afraid to take some risks because like you don't know how much of a negative opinion or how much of a negative experience something is going to be until you actually experience it. So there's a very real chance that like all that stuff is going to be a-okay with you, and you actually don't mind sleeping on the floor that much. You actually don't mind sharing a bed with another person that much. You actually don't mind like doing some of this other like stuff that's kind of annoying all that much. And yeah, if you like are afraid to take those risks, then you're never going to know that.
Another thing to piggyback off of that is traveling distance as well.
Yeah, the distance is so huge. So for me, my personal driving radius is 4 hours.
Me too.
Yeah, four hours is where I start to be like, okay, maybe we need to start thinking about if it is a 4-hour trip, I can wake up that day, drive 4 hours to the convention center, and like show up. If it is more than that, I need a hotel room the night before. It is not possible for me to wake up at like 3 a.m. to drive 5 hours to get to an 8 o'clock call time. That's not happening. Now, some people can drive. Some people can do like an 8-hour like drive before the event, and I don't know how these people do it. I personally, I've done like a few trips before. I've done like Nashville, which was 8 hours for me. I've done New Jersey. Oh gosh, that was a disaster. That was like 10 or 11 hours, and I did Charlotte, which was 9 hours. And like I drove the majority of all 3 of those trips, of course. I hate driving. I will like wuss out of driving after like after 3 hours. It starts getting really bad for me. And this is another thing. Like you don't know like how bad it is going to be until you've tried it a couple times. Like Jared Silva, he told me that he can drive 8 hours like just like normally, and I was like, yeah, this is like he can drive my and I sleep in the back anytime you want to do that, but I can't do it. I can't. If I'm driving more than 3 hours, someone else is going to have to take a shift because it's not happening.
Yeah, and for individuals, a lot of times when you get out of an event at 9 o'clock that Sunday night.
Yeah. And the temptation is there. The temptation is super there to like drive all the way so you can sleep in your own bed. Be safe. Your health is worth more than like, a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, because let's say you do get out of the event at 9.
Yeah, and I've for sure have been there before. I for sure have been like, dying by the end of a 3-hour drive.
And let's say you went really crazy, tired. It was a 5-hour drive. Oh, so you get out to your car at 9:30.
Yeah.
You drive a little bit. You realize you have to top off your gas, and now it's about 9:45.
Yeah.
You have to stop for dinner.
Yeah. That's
so now you're looking at like 10:15 or so.
Don't try to be a hero.
5 hours to drive home.
Just pull over.
Like 3:15 in the morning.
Yeah, if you're in that spot, just pull over and like take a couple hours to get some sleep, because you will be driving a lot worse if you're that tired. I guarantee it. So your health and safety is important to us.
Yeah, and with that as well, other people in the car can help that.
Oh yeah, other people in the car better be like stepping up.
If you're by yourself and you're driving and you have nothing to do but fall asleep at the wheel.
Oh man, Toronto was
going to be incredibly
bad. Toronto was so bad. I drove to Toronto, GP Toronto, with like 3 player friends of mine, and like, I don't remember what time it was when we like got out of there. It's a 6-hour drive. Toronto from Fort Wayne is a 6-hour drive. And like it was a solid, we were like dying. It was a solid like 9-10 o'clock when we like drove out of Toronto, and like it was so bad. And like we were all at the end of the trip, we were all like dead. And it was like, oh man, guys, I'm like so tired. Can someone else drive? And everybody else was like, no man, I'm like way not safe to drive right now. So
yeah, and with that, maybe you're looking at cost of a hotel. Like, yeah, you don't need to justify getting another hotel that night. You don't need to cut into your profits like that. But just pulling over at a rest stop.
Yeah, pull over at a rest stop and
taking a nap there is perfectly fine. That's why they're there. They're there to keep people safe.
All right, so that's good. We're making sure. Now, the other big expense, we talked about hotel, which is the biggest expense. We talked about the drive. The food is the
Gas
next
as well with the drive.
Yeah. Well, everybody like knows how much gas is. Like you can figure out how much you expect the gas to be like with your trip.
Just don't forget it.
The food is another big one because people don't take food into account as much as they could when they're food is the biggest like overage because like when you do a hotel, you know how much the hotel is going to be, right? You book the hotel, you know how much the hotel is going to be. When you do gas, you can like estimate how much the gas is going to be. It's going to be like a range, but you can estimate. The food you can estimate, but you might be underestimating. And I've never seen anyone overestimate how much they're going to spend on food, but people underestimate it all the time. So like take that into account when you're doing your preparations here.
Yeah, what's nice is I can look. We have GP Detroit coming up soon.
Yeah.
David's playing. I'm going to be working.
Yep. Fear the team.
Yes, it's going to be a fun team.
My team's going to win.
Yours is. My team's going to go undefeated.
Yeah.
So compensation for a floor judge is $200 per day, per shift. And if I look at the hotel, I can say beforehand, oh, I'm splitting with 4 people. It's going to be about $30 a night. I'm going to be there for 2 nights. That's $60. I can go, okay, that's not too bad against the cost. It's less than half a day. Then I get into food. If
Literally,
I'm working,
you can spend as much as you
I was going to say, if I'm working, let's just say Saturday and Sunday. Saturday morning, I go out for breakfast, $10. Get something and a coffee. I'm gonna make David hurt here.
Oh man, I hurt.
Then for lunch, I go out with my team and we hit up like McDonald's.
All right.
And
I get now we're getting a little reasonable here.
I get like $6 of food. That's 16.
That's pretty generous amount of McDonald's.
Well, yeah,
that's reasonable.
That's what I'm saying. And then I go out for dinner and we're all celebrating.
Sky's the freaking limit.
Man. And I get a beer and I get like a really nice pulled shredded chicken sandwich something. And it's $25.
That's on the like cheap end. You got out easy there.
I did. And then I have
judges have like such expensive tastes too, and I don't know what it is, but like, you know, there's always, it seems to me like every event there's always like a bunch of judges and they're like, hey Dave, you want to go to, and then they'll like say the name of like some really expensive steakhouse or like some really expensive thing.
Like,
and I hear stories about,
I don't want to go.
I hear stories about people like spending like $50 on one meal, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how is that even possible? Like you realize that could be like, you know, maybe like 5% of an underground C, or like, you know, so $50 in your shirt pocket.
I've seen judges drop like 20% of a UC on a night, which is crazy. Then anyways, so $25 for the meal, plus I got a tip, so we're gonna say it's like 32.
Yeah.
So now my daily total is 48.
Great point from the chat. Using how much you're getting paid to decide how much to spend on food is not a sound decision-making strategy. I agree with that one 100%, Mr. Supernova.
Yeah.
So, but here's what I do for that, okay?
But
so,
at that point, like, the cost of that food for a day is almost as much as my hotel for the week.
Yeah, you got to think about that stuff. So, like, what I do is I set a hard cap. Like, if someone says, like, Dave, do you want to go to, and then they say the name of a restaurant, I say, okay, I'll look it up on the internet. Because Google will give you like a good idea of like how much you can expect to pay, and I set like a hard cap for myself. If I'm spending more than $20, I better be like celebrating something. Like $30 is the most I've ever spent on a meal in my entire life, I think. But I'm cheap. Like you guys can like pick your own numbers that make sense for you. I will put out there, I am not a foodie, right? Like for me, I do not believe that I could distinguish between like a Rally's mushroom Swiss burger and like a mushroom Swiss burger that was made by Emerald Lagasse in a blind taste test. I really don't think I could. If you are a person where like you're getting value out of that, then like by all means like spend an amount of money that you're comfortable with. But like don't go into a weekend thinking like, hey, I'm gonna be, you know, profiting X amount, and then not taking your like $50 or whatever amount of money that you spend on food into account when you make that figure up.
Yeah,
I would be perfectly happy going to McDonald's every week. So if you're a judge and you're looking for like some you know cheaper meal options, find me at a tournament and we'll go out to dinner together. We'll have like judge fellowship communication whatever together, and we'll do it without spending like however much money that the Brazilian steakhouse places cost.
I did also go into what was this?
Brazilian steakhouses are great,
GP Columbus. and I had my Taco Bell
Oh,
cup
yeah,
because I
yeah.
got some Taco Bell breakfast.
Yeah.
And I said good morning to a judge, and they said, "What, Taco Bell? You can get that anywhere."
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, it was also $4."
Yep. And also, like, Columbus
was
is a
fine.
big. If you're a judge who's not from the Midwest, Columbus is like the food place, right? Because there's this place called North Market that's right by Columbus that has like a bunch of like apparently insanely amazing food places. In my opinion, like I've been there a couple of times. I'm gonna, don't all like form a hate mob or whatever. I've been there a couple of times. It's food. It's whatever. Well, but like it's apparently really really excellent. So like everybody at Columbus, it's North Market. There you go. Yep, the North Market shout out. So anyway, if you go to Columbus, go to North
Yeah.
Market. I hear it's really great. I personally usually go to Burger King or McDonald's or Wendy's. Wendy's is really great because they have the 4 for $4, and what that is, that's a chicken nuggets, a fries, a hamburger, and the hamburger you want to pick like there's like different choices for it, but the best one is usually the double stack, and a drink, and it's $4. And then on top of that, you can staple on the free keychain Frosty. You can get there's like a coupon you can buy where it's like if you like go here, you can get like a free Frosty. So you get the free Frosty stapled on top of that, and that's really excellent.
So David may or may not be looking for a sponsor from Wendy's.
Oh man, yeah. Wendy's is great. It used to be Subway. It used to be that I would go to Subway every time because that was a great cheap like food option. But like nowadays I'm on Wendy's. Wendy's is one of my favorites. If that's not enough food for you, and it might not be because it's the portion sizes aren't like insane or anything, but like you can staple another chicken nuggets on for $1, and that usually gets me like. That's good. If you're on a budget, you want to go to like Wendy's is getting a little old for you. Maybe you go to McDonald's. McDonald's you can get their version of the double stack, which is I believe the McDouble is what it's called. So completely different, but like that's what it is. It's a double stack. You can go to McDonald's and those are generally in the price range of $1 to $1.25. They have like a range, like different McDonald's charge different amounts depending on like how swanky they are. Or like whatever city they're in. So you get like 3 or 4 McDoubles and then a fries, and then the yogurt parfait is like my secret like menu item for McDonald's.
3 or 4 McDoubles.
Well, like you got to have like enough food to work with for whatever
Oh
amount
my
of time
goodness.
it is. And then like Taco Bell is another great one. There's some great budget options at Taco Bell. I'm sure you know. The cheese log is one of my favorites. I don't know what the actual name of it is, but it's on their dollar menu, like whatever the Taco Bell dollar menu is called. So yeah, that's like some great food options. You can get them anywhere, but you can't get the Columbus North McDonald's McDouble anywhere. You can only get that at one specific restaurant. It's probably the same as like most of the other ones you've had though before. So
Yeah, but
they're cheap.
you can find crazy options.
They're
So for
cheap.
example, when I'm in Columbus, I go to North Market and I spend about $2. And I get fully satisfied because there's this bread place
Oh yeah, the bread place
that does all of their like leftover stuff or their little puddles of bread goo that didn't quite make big enough loaves, so they're just these tiny loaves that are like 65 cents each. And if I get 2 of those, then I'm good to go. I can like grab that in a drink and I'm happy.
Sure.
Which, speaking of, if you have never worked a large event before,
Drink water.
drink water. That is key. But also, we're talking about lunch. Pretty much anywhere you're going to go, you're going to get at least 1 round / 1 hour
Yeah.
for lunch.
Yeah.
At a minimum. If your team lead has not sent you on lunch yet and you're like, say, 6 hours into your shift, remind them.
Yeah. So that's a big one.
Dave, you have more team lead experience than I do. Does it happen?
No.
Do you just forget to send people sometimes?
No, like that's one of my like biggest responsibilities in my opinion as a team lead is making sure everybody gets their breaks.
Better question. Does it happen?
It has happened. Like it definitely does. Like I try like the plague to avoid that because it's very serious in my opinion. Fatigue affects people, and like it's one of those problems that people are like incentivized to not speak up against because they don't want to be like, oh this guy's the wuss, he wants to take a break. But like realistically, like this is a very important thing to like we were saying earlier, like your health is important. This is important. Like taking breaks is important for your performance. It 100% matters.
Yeah, and there are some people who might go out there and think like, oh, well, if I just work through my whole shift and I'm awesome, then I'll get exemplars.
No.
Like, giving bad calls at the end of your shift because you haven't drank water or gotten lunch yet, is not exemplary.
Yeah, there's a
and
story.
will never be exemplary.
There's a story about a certain very experienced judge who will remain nameless, who literally fainted during his shift because he was so dehydrated. So don't let that be.
Don't be that
like
judge.
don't judge until your like exhaustion and dehydration is affecting you. Look, we drink water even when we're on the air because we know how important it is. It's very important to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and use your break rounds to take care of yourself. Now, what do you like to do on your break rounds? Are you a go out with everybody guy? Or are you a get some time by yourself kind of guy?
It'll depend on the event. Sometimes for example, if I've done prize wall, which I really enjoy doing prize wall. You get to hang out with a lot of people. You get to talk a lot.
Yeah.
Usually I'm pretty peopled out. And I want to just have a little bit of time to, put my headphones in, just kick back, get some food, and sit down for a moment. If I've been judging and maybe it's been kind of a slower day and I really don't have a whole lot of interaction, then yeah, I'm probably going to see what my team is doing and get a sense for what they're going to do and hopefully, not spend a whole lot of money because of peer pressure.
Yeah. So, okay, for me, it's 100% like lunch buying myself kind of a thing. For me, interacting with people at all is a takes energy instead of giving energy kind of a thing. So, with that being the case, the lunch break or whatever, your break round, that's a solid hour of me not having to like talk to people or like pretend that I'm having a great time. I am having a great time, but my exterior might not make you think that is the case. There's definitely been tournaments that I was like as a player I went to it, and because I was playing and not judging, I literally had 3 separate people come up to me and ask like, Dave, are you feeling okay? Because I just like I wasn't making an effort to make it look like I was feeling great. So the happy smiley Dave that everybody loves was not there. It was the serious like, oh my gosh, I gotta ration myself for like 4 more rounds of this. We gotta like get in the tank 4 more times. So
because when you're judging, you're on stage.
Yeah.
I've worked at a lot of summer camps and programs, and that's the term that I like best. Is you always have your on stage persona. It's not necessarily that you're acting. You're not a different person.
Yeah.
You're just you, but you're you in front of everyone.
Yeah.
And smiling and being not necessarily happy, but at least helping.
Approachable,
friendly. Yes. Can take a lot out of more people than it does others. Yeah. I know judges who are happy to smile and go around all day. I met quite a few at Gen Con, which was pretty great. And then I know plenty that would rather, take a little bit of time for themselves and just enjoy that.
Yeah,
because when you're surrounded by so many people, it's really easy to get peopled out.
Yeah, if you find yourself like getting exhausted from that much, from too much interacting with people, for sure, don't feel ashamed to like say, hey, team lead, sorry, but like I'm gonna go to like this other restaurant for lunch, and that's completely fine. Don't feel pressured to join the group if the group is pressuring you. That is a thing that like in my opinion, I've had that happen too. I've had team leads try to pressure me into going with the group. And I had to tell them firmly, no, I'm not going to that restaurant with all of you. I'm going somewhere else. And I'm, that is a thing. That is 100% a thing. And don't feel bad about taking time from. It's exactly the same as like don't feel bad about taking a break. You get a break. The break is to help your performance. This is the same thing. If you are being pressured into spending your break doing something that's going to hurt your performance later on, then
is it really a break?
Yeah, that's not okay. So don't do stuff like that. That's a very in general, in my opinion, that's something that like is the number one thing that I would tell people for their first tournaments is don't be intimidated by everybody else, because that's I think the biggest thing that happens to people. Obviously, it's easy to say don't be intimidated by everybody else. It's super easy for me to say it because like I'm probably one of the people that's
really
intimidating other people. But like after like my X number of events that I've been to, I'm comfortable. But if it's like all new experiences, it's hard to say no to people for stuff like that. But that's for sure a thing that you should be feeling okay about saying no to.
Oh man, I was gonna say something about that, and it's totally fine to. One thing that I've gotten to really appreciate about the judging community is that if you're honest with people,
Yeah.
or if you just
Oh, yeah.
bring it up, they're gonna be okay with it.
That is for sure true.
I don't think I've ever met a judge where I've said something and they're like, well, that's crazy, or how could you be so silly, or
Well, maybe on Facebook.
well, yes, that's a different animal though. But if I say, hey Dave, I know that our group's gonna do this, but I think I'm just gonna head to this restaurant.
What? Are you kidding me, Dalton? We were counting on you. We wanted you to go to this restaurant with us. We're all gonna go as a team and play like judge games or something. Like with. Yeah, no, that is not what it's gonna be like. That was a joke for those of you.
Over dramatization.
That was a drama. Yeah, that's not gonna happen. Like it's if you talk to someone and say like, hey,
yeah,
here's what the situation
you
is.
might
And that's
get
true for anything. By the
Yeah,
way.
you might get an "Are you sure?" and you say yes, and then they're like, "Okay,"
Yeah.
and then you're good. It's great. And so with that, let's say that we've done our event. Everything
Yeah.
is fantastic.
Yep.
It's the end of our shift.
Great.
We got to come back tomorrow.
Sure thing.
Now what?
Go out and drink.
I mean, yeah, you can.
I mean, that's a popular answer for most judges, for many judges.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, usually on Saturday nights for events, I won't call it a tradition, but I usually go out to eat and I'll grab a beer. And I really don't go and buy alcohol at any other restaurant ever. Like, it's
Yeah.
only during judging.
Yeah.
But that's something I like doing. I like going out with other people. Other people will go and they'll draft their cube that they brought.
Yeah.
Or they'll go back to the hotel and they'll play test for some side event, or there's so much stuff you can do.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Especially if you are rooming with other people, is you're gonna have the opportunity to keep going. And sometimes
Gen
that's
Con
great
was
and it's
really bad
awesome.
for this, by the
Gen
way.
Con's really bad for this.
We just had Gen Con.
But sometimes it's important to just know your limit.
Yeah.
If it's 11 o'clock by the time you're getting back to the hotel, you need to be up at 8 for the meeting the next day, and people are trying to go to this movie because the new Avengers just came out.
Oh, yeah. That was for sure a thing, by the way.
That happened at what, GP Columbus?
It was whatever
I think?
GP it was, or the Avengers. came
Yeah.
out.
I think GP Columbus was the one where I was at, where I think it was Infinity War just
Oh,
came
yeah.
out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is it really worth it to go to bed at 3 to get up at 8 the next day? Sometimes it's not.
It could be. Like, for certain people, it could be.
It certainly could
For
be.
me, it's not. And for me, it's really easy. For me personally, it's really easy because, like, by the end of the day of a tournament, at the end of that shift, I have spent almost 100% of whatever resource it is that I use when I interact with people.
Mm-hmm.
It is like, people post like the cell phone photos where it's like, yeah, I got all the way down to like 1% battery life or whatever. That's literally how I feel like at the end of every like GP shift or SEG shift or whatever. So I never like do anything like that. What I do is I go with all the people who are in my hotel and I'm like, okay guys, we're going to get some dinner. So sometimes I let them talk me into an expensive place. Sometimes I like go to McDonald's and we compromise. But we go to the hotel and then I just like take my judge shoes off because that's super huge. That's a great feeling. Shoes and socks.
Yep.
Changing to some shorts because those pants they're a little restrictive after a day of working. When you're wadding on the bed. You need something comfortable, and that's basically what my evening plans usually are. So I'm sorry I'm boring, I guess, but
No,
know your limits.
you bring up a good point, and that's packing for events.
Oh yeah,
I always bring a pair of flip-flops with me.
flip flops are good.
Because at the end of the day, I want to kick off my shoes and do something a little more comfortable.
Yeah, I do a hard pass
So-
on like shoes and socks in general. The socks are very important. Like you take the socks off because you feel like you basically like your feet grow like an inch after you
They
take
grow
your
10
socks off,
sizes.
basically. Like it's scary.
Yeah, that's something that helps me relax. I have one suitcase that I use for judging, and in it I keep a list of just
Oh, wow.
things that I want to make sure I bring.
Yeah.
And usually, the list says phone, keys, wallet, chargers, 3 t-shirts, judge shirt, black pants, shorts, flip-flops, And then every now and then I'll bring like the book I'm reading, or I'll bring like Commander and Modern decks, or I'll bring Trade Binder, or a little bit of things. Never forget a toothbrush. Don't be gross.
Hotels will usually spot you if you forget your toothbrush, so that's something to keep in mind. If you forget like most toiletries, your hotel will usually have it covered.
Please wear deodorant.
Yeah, please.
Please.
I for sure like had that happen to me. Like one time I like forgot to take deodorant and I had to like buy a $3 stick of deodorant at the gas station or something. And like that's the deodorant that I use in my travel bag now. That's my like badge of shame that I like have to keep because I spent like $3 on a stick of deodorant.
Yeah, don't be that roommate.
Yeah, for sure.
And alongside that too is if you bring like your phone to watch Netflix or a laptop or something, please bring headphones.
Oh yeah.
Don't be that roommate.
All right, so here's another important like travel tip. This is something not a lot of people know, but this is in my GP kit. I bought a charger that has like you plug it into the wall and it has 6 outlets, so you can charge like 6 phones at the same time, and that's insanely useful for these like trips because there's 4 people crammed in the hotel room, right? So if you've ever been in a hotel room, you know that there's like 1, maybe 2 outlets if you're lucky, like anywhere near the bed. Mm-hmm. So the multi-pack definitely helps you a lot. And then you can get like there's also charger cables that you can buy that like has one USB plug into it, and then it has like a USB-C, a Lightning, and a USB micro. So you can charge like 3 phones off the same thing if they're all different. But that's another thing. I recommend that for everybody's GP kit to get like one of those things that can charge. They're stupidly cheap. It's like less than $10 purchase, and it by far like that's a huge needle mover in terms of like quality of life.
Then you become that roommate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like this is like going in prepared. Like,
oh yeah,
you will always have your phone charged 100% the next day because you will not be like fighting over spots on the thing to have like the valuable resource of phone chargers.
Other things I like to bring: water bottle.
All right.
Some events will hand them out, others not so much.
Yeah,
I always like to make sure I have something to drink.
Yeah. I have like 3 water bottles in my car, and like if it comes out that there is no like bottled water that's provided by the tournament organizers, then I'm always prepared. So that's like an easy thing to like leave in your car. I was judging a few years ago when it seems like they gave out water bottles at like every event that they like every GP there was a water bottle, but they're not doing that as much anymore. They're like varying the gifts that they give out more, which is good. But like that means that if you're a new judge, then you might not have like half a dozen water bottles sitting around like I do. So
yeah, maybe get in touch with David.
Yeah, no way. Those are all special. They're all precious to me.
Red pens. Bring red pens to an event.
That's a good practice to get into. If you forget, don't stress out too much because like there's 100% chance that like some other judge will have brought extras. But always important to be prepared, and
if you do borrow one, give it back.
Yeah, well that's a important etiquette technique too.
Yeah,
you will like gain like 5 appreciation points from whatever judge that is if you do that, because that's very rare to get if you lend out a pen to get it back. Yeah, it's like.
And then another thing I like to bring is, I mentioned earlier, like a little notebook. And at the moment, from the last event I worked, SCG was passing these out at their events.
Yeah.
And I found it helped tremendously with just small things. Or, maybe you found a playmat at table 224. So you just jot that down. And when you get up to the front desk, you can...
Player names is another good one. Like if someone like lost a card, you can like write down what name the player was, so you can like get in touch with them after the round if you find it.
Yeah. So those are the things I really like to bring. Is there anything that you pack that maybe other people don't?
Yeah. Well, other than the super technology of that. Chromecast is a good one. Chromecast will improve your hotel staying experience in a lot of cases. That's one that we've considered putting in the GP kit, but we haven't put there yet. I like my own blanket and pillow if there's a chance that you're going to be sleeping on the floor. That's something that's pretty good. The hotel will have those for you, but it's a good idea to have your own. And luggage is another one. If you're flying, you want to have like your GP kit like locked up and ready to go. But that's another topic for another day. So that's the stuff that I was going to talk about, I think.
Yeah, I think that about covers everything I bring.
Yeah, anybody in the chat have their own travel tips that they'd like to share, or any other preparation tips of other types for judging a tournament? That's something we would sure be interested in hearing.
I don't know. I always try to bring snacks.
Snacks is that's one of those things where like after a while you'll know whether it's a good idea to bring them, because like some events, if the shift is like really long, then maybe it becomes more worthwhile. But I don't do a lot of snacking in the day, or I try not to.
I don't try to during the day, but usually like on the drive, I'll like something, and maybe that snack will help keep me from stopping at McDonald's and paying $5 for food on the way back.
All right, good point from the chat here. Any tournament that's an hour or more, I make a playlist for the drive. That is really good. Something I like, podcast is one thing that's been recommended to me. If you have a podcast that you want to listen to, this is a great time to do it. The K-pop soundtrack is definitely great. Everybody. Dalton, you ready for this at this judge conference this weekend?
Last time David and I drove together, we listened to Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a great... So, like, what you can do is you can take the audio out of like, a TV show, and then you can just, like, have that audio for it. And that is actually, like, it doesn't hurt you very much. Okay, if you're flying, definitely try the one-bag challenge and not drop $30 on your carry-on. This is another place where the loyalty programs can help you, because a lot of loyalty programs will give you, like, one free checked bag just for signing up, or like for getting to their lowest tier, which is generally like extremely easy to achieve. And a lot of the times if you like call the airline and say, hey, you know, and you like tell them it'd be really cool if you gave me a free checked bag, then they'll give you a free checked bag like for no reason. So that's another thing you can do for like the loyalty programs. That's another really easy perk to extract out of theirs. So that's a good one. We appreciate that tip also. Did you have anything you wanted to talk about?
Not really. But if you are driving with people, make sure you agree on what to do there.
Yeah, forget about that. Driver has first say, and if they don't care, shotgun has second say because they're in charge of navigating.
Yeah. Know where you're going.
That's where the ties are. That's where the ties are broken. That's pretty much universal.
It does help if you enjoy the same things.
Yeah, it would help. But you know, try and be considerate too. I don't bust the K-pop out for anybody who's not in the inner circle.
No, I'm in the K-pop circle.
That's right.
But I also do a podcast with David, stream.
Yeah,
rather.
That's
I say like, podcast.
That's
too
the
much.
Inner circle. Like it's right in there.
I say podcast too much. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go do my podcast. And I'm like, wait.
It's easier to explain to people what it is.
It is, because if I'm gonna go do a stream, then they're like,
What's
are you fishing?
Yeah. Oh.
No,
that's
I'm not
a good
fishing.
one.
I'm famous.
All right.
I'm
YouTube.
YouTube.
Yeah, we're YouTube, Twitch famous.
We're affiliated. So for all you out there that helped us get there, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. This is our first broadcast as affiliate streamers. So now you can like buy bits and cheer for us.
Sub to us.
Yeah, you can subscribe. I think that's like $5. If you have Amazon Prime, then it's free to you, but you have to like resubscribe to us every like month or something, I believe is what it was. So, you know, that's kind of cool.
And then I'll do a giveaway.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. We'll see what everyone wants to do. But start thinking now about what you want the Twitch emote to be, because that's for sure something
that is important.
We're soliciting ideas for that. Also soliciting ideas for future broadcasts, and it'd be cool if someone told us what they wanted to have us talk about. But other than that, it's been awesome chatting with everybody today, and thank you so much for tuning in with us. This is Dave Eldon and Dalton Grimes signing off. Have an awesome night, everybody.